Here with Ante Rupcik from Wind Mobile. He's the VP of Core Networks, talking about the network. You can see it's really loud in here. He's going to show us really what it takes to build out a network. So we're just going to go up and have a word with him. So thank you so much for your time. So what do we have here?
Well, we have here a variety of cabinets, and inside those cabinets are a variety of servers, both hardware and software on those servers that do a variety of things. So a mobile network is made up of a core site, and that core site has a variety of equipment that switches phone calls, takes data transmission and sends it from one place to another, or sends it to the internet, does value-added services like voicemail or text messaging, and a variety of other things, picture messaging, and also utilities for doing things with the device. For example, the ability to send things to a SIM card on a mobile device, the ability to top up a prepaid account, for example. So in here are the equipment and the tools to create the complete user experience. Everything from the services you use to how you pay for them, whether it's pre or post. So essentially the complete user experience.
Beautiful. So what else do we have here? Like, what does it actually take to build this? Like, how long does it take? How much does it cost?
Right. So typically, first of all, you have to start with the right building. It has to be a secure building. It has to have the right dimensions. You also have to plan so that you can add growth or augment that site. So there's a raised floor, for example. That facilitates easy running of cables, power cables, and data cables. There's an air conditioning system. Obviously, these sorts of large pieces of equipment generate some measurable heat, so we have to keep the heat down. We have to control the humidity. So basically, it's the building of the room. That's the first step. And so, acquiring the room and building, getting the right equipment and building out that room can take a few months. Then the equipment itself, you typically purchase the equipment, and that's a 10-week cycle. So from the point of purchase to the point of delivery, 10 or 12 weeks to actually bring the equipment here, assemble it, commission it, and get it up and running. So it can take a few months.
Okay. So let's see what else we got.
Sure. Okay, so we'll walk around this a minute.
Sure.
So again, some of these, like for example, Smart Trust, OTA means over the air. And what that does is it allows us to, on the fly, add things to the subscriber's identity module, the SIM card that's in the device. For example, we can add preferred roaming partners to that SIM card. We can change specific timers so that it optimizes their user experience. So it's really a means to facilitate change after the fact, a means to give the users new things, new services when they're out in the field, when they're out using their devices.
And how long does that take to implement? Let's say you want to add a new roaming partner. How long does that take to implement?
Well, notwithstanding all of the contract work and all of the things you have to do to attract the roaming partner, once you have all that in place, all it takes is a script file. Someone creates a script file, identifies the user that needs to get some addition, and it's sent over the air whenever the device is on. So the process itself is rather quick. I mean, it can take just a few hours.
Right.
Another example, Telekin eTop-Up. This is a means to easily top up your prepaid account. So if you're a user that chooses to pay in advance for services, this is a means to facilitate that user experience. So it allows you to easily put credit into your account and use it as you will. So again, a very convenient piece of equipment that allows you to charge up your account.
It's like the Matrix.
Yes. So we'll keep walking along here. Again, you can see the sort of size and breadth and scope of this. I mean, there's a lot of equipment here. networks technology. We're using the latest IP technology. And so with IP technology, there's a lot of efficiencies of scale. What we do here is we have both an immediate gateway and a soft switch or a mobile switch, and essentially we separate the actual user plane from the signaling plane, so to speak. And so it's actually a very efficient way of sharing load and responsibility, and also creating redundancy and high availability. And so we can spread these units across different cities and effectively create an overlap in redundancy, and essentially make everything more robust and efficient.
So how does that affect the customer though?
So how it affects the customer is it translates into a more reliable experience. What it also does is it allows for an all IP network, and that all IP network allows us to offer the newest internet services, allows us to offer the most the fastest services in terms of transmission of data. And so it's highly efficient.
Okay. Right.
So we'll keep walking along here. And again, some of it becomes
It's a lot hotter here than over to the right.
So this has a lot to do with the distribution of air conditioning. So we happen to be sort of in the middle, and there's a lot of heat being generated by these units. And so as the air flows through here, as the air flows through here, it just takes some time for this heat to be dissipated. Of the size of the air conditioning units. I'm not sure what sort of air conditioning you have in your home, but it's likely a lot smaller than this.
Big time.
And so you can see the size of these units. I mean, there's a lot of air conditioning horsepower, so to speak, just to keep this equipment cool and to keep the humidity at the right level.
And is this your only location?
No. So we have one of these in each of our key cities. So we have one in Ottawa, one in Calgary, one in Edmonton, and one in Vancouver.
Okay.
And so as we grow in each major city, we add another data center. And that data center does serve a fairly large region, but again, by having them in the key cities, it creates an easier maintenance process and allows us to more easily serve all these customers.
So what happens when one of those, like, what happens when the network goes down, for example? What happens? Is there a backup?
Yes. So at every level of the network, there's different aggregation points. Everything from the cell site all the way in the backbone and the backhaul transmission, all the way to the heart of the switching system. We have redundancy at each of those points. So if one of the minor components goes down, there's all sorts of redundancy that takes over, either a different route or a different piece of equipment. If a disaster occurs, for example, here at a major center, then we have an Ottawa site that takes over, that recovers, that does the intelligence for the site. So we have built a lot of redundancy and availability into our service offerings.
Right. Okay.
So we'll keep walking along here. So Tata, as an example, is one of our partners, and Tata provides some of the signaling networks for us. So for example, when we want to have roaming agreements with a carrier in the US or carriers overseas, or when we want to have a national roaming agreement, for example, we use Tata, or we count on Tata to do some of our signaling networks. They can also provide some of our international calling trunks and networks as well. Andrew, for example, helps with our location services. So for example, for 911 calling, as you may know, we have assisted GPS. So essentially our devices have GPS chipset in them. And so when you're in trouble and you call 911, we can locate you in a very small grid, or very small granularity of tens of meters. So we've been known to track people, as little as 10 meters or less. So it's a very important part of our 911 compliance. Roaming, of course, you're familiar with roaming. connecting those switching centers directly to each other, we have what we call a transfer point, a hub, so to speak. And then all our equipment talk to the hub, the signaling hub, and then from that hub we're able to talk to many other carriers, public carriers, the incumbents, roaming partners, and so on. Nokia Siemens. So RNC stands for Radio Network Controller. So it's one of those aggregation points that I spoke about earlier. So we have all of these cell sites covering, blanketing the city of Toronto. And all of those cell sites are aggregated by a radio network controller. And you may have more than one radio network controller in any given city, depending on how much aggregation you want, how many cell sites you have. And these radio network controllers are then taken up to a switching node, a soft switch node, for example. And that's where all of the intelligence resides for switching your phone call. Either it goes to the public network, or it goes to one of your friends and family on the on-net, or it goes to the internet. So basically it's an aggregation point for all of those cell sites that are out in the field. One of the things that you cannot get away from, even though we're a wireless network, is that you still have a lot of wires. Again, these wires are necessary because you're making connections to the public network, for example. You're making cross connections to different equipment. And again, wires are still a fact of life, and they allow us to cross connect things. Now, of course, we use a variety of wires, and certainly fiber technology is something that we use a great deal of. And you'll see a lot of it in some of our lineups here. MGW stands for Media Gateway. So this is one of the user plane nodes that we talked about earlier that basically switches all of your voice calls, for example, to the public network or to wherever it's going. So it's a means to take your voice part and connect it to other networks. The switching fabric. This is more of the soft switch fabric that, again, we have redundant equipment like this in Ottawa, Calgary, Vancouver, and so essentially if we have a problem with this equipment, there's equivalent, equal equipment in these other cities. And it creates that very hardened sense of reliability for us. That's what we need.
Wow.
So, we'll go over here. Again, we have more servers that do a variety of things. So some of these could be for some of our messaging services. Some of them could be for some of our picture messaging and voicemail and so on. So there's a variety of services that are captured within these cabinets. HLR, for example, stands for Home Location Register. So for the sake of creating a very highly available network, we separate out our subscriber database from all the other elements. So contained within the HLR are all the subscriber details. This is where all of the subscriber information is kept. The user, the account, the different services they have, and so on. So again, it's a way to separate and keep whole all of the subscriber information in one place. And again, this is also backed up. So we have an equivalent version of this as far out as Vancouver. So again, the idea being that if there happens to be a disaster, we're prepared. So there you have it. So as you can see, there's a lot of equipment here, and it's worth millions of dollars.
Each area is worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
How much?
Well, I mean, this site here, for example, is usually over $10 million. So I know that your home computer is a little bit less than that, but
Yeah, it's about 1,000.
yeah.
Okay, so with everything you have going on here, what is really from Win compared to a Rogers network, a Telus, a Bell, even Public Mobile or Mobilicity? What's the difference between what you have here and what they offer?
Right. Fair question. I mean, the incumbents have been here for a long time, so they've had a chance to build out a lot of equipment. And so we recognize that we have to catch up in some ways. In other ways, what we've installed here is the first all-IP network in Canada. I mean, this is the first major build in a decade, I think. And so an all-IP network allows us to leapfrog in many ways. It allows us to offer a lot of new things very quickly on an all-IP network. We've also built a brand new highway here, so to speak, as well. And we like to think of it as like a German Autobahn. I mean, there's a lot of new lanes here. We have devices that are smart and fast, and essentially we're offering users a great, fast user experience. When it comes to new entrants like Mobilicity and Public, I don't know that much about them per se. What I do know is that they're very focused on the urban centers. We are focused on the entire country and all the roaming partners that come along with it. So our focus is on a national scale. We have a national roaming agreement. We have international roaming agreements. We have customers that are roaming in many, many countries. In fact, we have a partnership now that allows our customers to roam in 500 operations in over 200 countries already.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. Now, the other thing that I know is that the new guys will take some time to get to the same place that we're at.
How come? Just because of how they're building out their network?
Well, we started running before they did, or we started running faster than they did. We learned a lot of things in our launch. I mean, let's face it, no launch is perfect. And so we did the best we could, and then we learned a few things, and now we're much better for it. And I think
what are some of the things you learned?
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of network optimization things that we have to do. We have to tweak this. We have to fine-tune that. We have to make sure that everything is working in synchronization. So there's a variety of things that need to be done to make things work well. And yes, we launched a good network, but we also optimized it, and we fixed a few things.
Good.
So we're very proud of that.
So with regards to your cell sites, how many do you have?
So when we launched, we covered the city of Toronto and Calgary. At this point in time, we added 100% more sites since that launch.
Wow.
And so going forward, we keep adding sites, and it's always hard to know where we will be at what time frame. But certainly by the end of this year, we're going to have even more than what we have today. And so without naming numbers of sites, because that's always deceptive, because our sites cover areas in a different way, in a better way, in a more complete way. So sites are not a good benchmark for comparing. So suffice to say that we are covering the cities well. We keep adding coverage to improve some of our areas. We're getting there. We're getting there very quickly.
That's good. So
Yeah.
what do you think the biggest hurdle you have to get over to get to that next level of whatever it's service or reliability?
For us, the next milestone is to get another big city up. We have to get Vancouver up. So I think that's a very key requirement for us. And then after that, we begin to look at all the other cities, all the other smaller cities. And so for us, it's just about becoming ubiquitous as quickly as possible.
Right.
On top of that, we have all sorts of new plans. And for us, it's about transparency. It's about unlimited offerings. It's about giving the users what they've been asking for. And so to offer all these things requires a lot of coordination. A lot of coordination with our IT systems and our billing systems and our prepaid systems. It involves a lot of coordination with new vendors. It involves a lot of coordination with devices. We're offering a lot of new devices as well. And so everything from the device to the user experience on the device to the ubiquitous coverage to the new services that sit on top of those coverage areas it's a pretty quick launch. I mean, I've launched networks in many parts of the world, and this is a very fast launch, one of the fastest.
Yeah. And compared to the other places you've seen, how is this comparing to
Well,
previous?
well, one of the things that has happened in previous launches is that the penetration rates were not as high in some of these other countries. So our starting point was more on an even basis. The incumbents were not that far ahead. Here, the incumbents are much further ahead. And so while we recognize that, we also know as an underdog, we can